Sapiens of Earth. This ghastly weekend I'm going to talk to you about how to keep your dead in the ground, or at least giving you some historical tips and tricks on how they did it. Results might vary this weekend according to legend, but this relates to all time of year, so it should be good to go. Burial practices play a key role in most tips on how to keep your dead where they belong. And throughout history, people used to make sure that you stayed where you were when you had begun to do that eternal longing for the fjords, so to speak. One rather common practice when it comes to this kind of worries are to see that you pierce the suspect riser's heart with a nail or stake or some other kind of sharp implement. Archaeological evidence suggests that this kind of vampire burials, as they are called, reach back as far as 4,000 years in Europe. And during excavations of an ancient Thracian city that had been inhabited since 5000 BC and forward, archaeologists found a number of these kind of vampire burials reaching back to the 13th century and possibly the beginning of the Black Plague or some other plague. And we can also see this kind of practice used in Sweden during the 14th century, thanks to the murder victim known as Bockstensmannen, whose attackers, or at least someone, used to stake to make sure he wouldn't come back. Excavations of the Drawsko cemetery in Poland also show these kind of vampire burials dating up to as late as the 17th and 18th century. And in this Bulgarian example that I mentioned, the person's left leg had also been removed, possibly to limit movement if he got up, even despite the stake. According to Bodisa Dimitrov, who runs the National History Museum in Sofia, Bulgaria, there are about 100 vampire-type skeletons that have been uncovered and excavated in Bulgaria alone. We can also look into the book Before You, that is written by Karel Hlobil, and it describes these kind of burials that also seem to take place during the Slavic Bronze Age. And these early Slavic peoples practiced in general cremation, but as they spread south and to Central and Western Europe, they came across groups who used skeleton burials predominantly, and apparently, according to Hlobil, this made the Slavics worry about these dead returning as vampires, or at least undead. These fear vampires can be seen, or undead rising, can be seen through the archaeological record throughout Europe. And the mythical entity that we now know as a vampire can be traced into sources of ancient Roman, Egyptians and Greeks, even though the term vampire comes from the Slavic word for revenants, which is vampire or upir. Other archaeologically recorded methods of preventing the dead to rise goes as follows. Skeleton turned upside down with their heads sometimes separated from the body and placed among their feet. Weighting down the body with stones or other implements. Cremation, that might result in a wraith though. And putting scythes, axes or other sharp instruments over the throat of the suspected vampire or to be undead person. And that would basically decapitate them if they try to rise. We also have, as mentioned, stakes through the heart, which is rather common. Besides those practices, we also have a practice that is quite common if you look in modern literature also, but dates back to European custom. and that is to bury a person that you fear might come back as an undead or a ghost at a crossroad, and that would confuse the spirit, so they don't find their way back to you or to whoever you fear they might haunt. Persons who were subjected to this kind of treatment or were suspected to be in risk of coming back, so to speak, often came to people who had had unusual deaths, so let's say suicide or murder victims, or people who had been ostracized by society even when they were alive. So we're talking about risk groups being people with unusual physical appearance, people who had not been baptized or born out of wedlock, witch practitioners, of course, and also people who had died during an epidemic. This we see especially during the Black Plague, or pretty much anyone who would fall into the group of outsider within medieval society, and also might be ostracized in more modern European societies as well. I hope you have learned something here, and I hope that you will keep looking into this. I will link some academic links down below, especially for that dig in Poland. It's a really interesting short article, and also I recommend you taking a look at Before You, because I find it a really interesting book when you talk about Slavic burial practices. I'm going to talk more about vampire next year, and until then I hope you have a terrifying weekend with a lot of fun and a lot of nice food and stuff like that, and keep your wits about you, and hopefully you won't see too many real monsters. Happy Halloween!